Thank you so much. I was introduced to you about 4 years ago, and you have definitely changed my life.
You have definitely changed your life. We have just reminded you who you are.
Yes.
Our answers are only really good because you have good questions.
Yes.
Without your questions, we would have no answers at all.
Okay.
You had a hard time getting up here, and now we won't let you talk.
Yes. I have, it's 2 questions. But the first one is that I have, and it's a little off what we've talked about, and that's why I thought you might not call me because it's kind of on a different subject. But this year, I have lost 2 people that have meant the world to me. My youngest brother died just instantly, and my father died 5 months later. And I really wonder where they are, and do they see us, and do they contact with us, and where is he? And it might sound really silly, but that would mean the world to me if I would just know that he was okay, and that when we go there, that we have an awareness of where we've been. And does that, anything like that exist?
Well, there's so much that we want to give you, and you are speaking from the framework of physical. You've done such a good job in your physical format of translating vibration through your physical senses that you've created a reality around yourself that is so satisfying. I can see this, I can smell this, I can hear this, I can taste this, I can touch this. That in some ways, by your preoccupation with how good you are at translating that vibration and calling it real or reality, you keep yourself from being able to see the other also. Now, it's sort of a remarkable thing that's happening even here, because while your eyes and physical senses are translating the physical embodiment of Esther, Esther's managed to tap in to that beingness or that vibration that you are hoping to reach for. In other words, if you were to ask Esther what she thinks about non-physical, does it exist? She would say, are you kidding? In other words, it's a very real vibration that we absolutely have access to. As I've been chatting it up with Abraham for a number of years, I can feel the realness and the validity of it. In other words, it's not something that she could make up. It is something that is real, but she knows it in a way that words can't convey it to you. So then when Esther's father died 2 years ago, and then this last March her mother died. There is no death, but you know what I mean. Croak. We like the word croak better. It is so disrespectful since there is no death. Now Esther is turning her attention to the non-physical in a different way, because she accepts us as we are, as she has been receiving us, but now she is wanting to know what is it like for someone that she has known who has been physically focused, who is now clearly not physically focused. She can't see them. She can't call them on the telephone. She can't have the conversations in the way that she once did. The relationship definitely has changed. So how is it different for you, she wants to know. So she lies in her bed one night and is focused very powerfully from a joyful day that they've experienced. As she is drifting off to sleep, her attention begins to turn toward her parents. And she is thinking about how now she knows that they are together again. And while she had chatted with her father and she had chatted with her mother, she had not really been thinking of them in terms of what it is like to be together. And now something that's happened in her day is making her think about them being together. And so now for the first time, she's holding the thought of them rather than the thought of one or the other. And a remarkable thing happened because she felt them. Now, you know how when you know people, and certainly you've noticed that you can be with a person and you can be with another person, but when those people are together, then it's almost like there is another personality. In other words, there's a blending of the energies that makes for the uniqueness of what we all are. And so Esther began to actually feel, she salivated over it. It was so satisfying to her that she could feel the vibration of her father, who is now non-physically focused, and she could feel the vibration of her mother, who is non-physically focused. And while their vibrations are specifically their vibrations, as she is now contemplating the two of them together, it was yet another vibration that felt absolutely like mom and dad. So She said, "Hey, you guys, I can feel you. Can you hear me?" She is projecting this through thought. And her father said what he always said, "We're here. Do you want to talk to your mother?" And Esther began laughing very hard because she could not have received anything that would have been more meaningful to let her know something that she's been hearing from us all along, which is when you make your transition to the non-physical, you do not for a moment wonder who you are. We really want you to understand that you are non-physical energy that is projected into this physical body, and that same energy is what reemerges into non-physical. And to the degree that you learn in your physical body to close your physical gap, to that degree you begin to understand what life is really like on all levels. Most humans have separated themselves from that significantly enough that they really worry about the separation that they perceive in what they call the death experience. But we want you to understand that nothing even close to a separation exists. In fact, it is the opposite of separation. When you make your death transition, there is no death, and you reemerge back into non-physical, you have such clear awareness of who you are. And in light of the question that you are asking here, not just who you are, but who you have recently been. In other words, in the same way that you were once 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and so on. We won't go all the way to where you are. So, you're much older than you know. Old. You're all old. As you transition through those physical life experiences, you do not look far back often. In other words, the continuum between where you are and that which you have just become is always what is most present in your awareness of your evolution. And so when you reemerge back into non-physical, that non-physical you is only the non-physical version of the highly evolved you. Now this is something that we have not said before. You're really going to like this. You know how we're talking about you were source and you came into this body? And then you lived life and you contributed more to your vibrational escrow, and so you became more. When you have what humans call the death experience, you are at that, all that's in that vibrational escrow is that which you are. Nice to know, isn't it? Now, we're going to come back and answer this part of your question fully, but we want to go just a step further and it is from that non-physical culmination of all of that you come back again. Ooh. In other words, that's why the kids are Cadral ready. You struggle with your computer and you launch rockets of wanting to understand it, and the source energy part of you does, and when you're born, you're already there. In other words, this evolution is wonderful. So, now to get to the specifics of your question. So, you're newly reemerged back into non-physical, and you are so aware of everything that you've just been living. And the biggest distinction is that now that you have reemerged back into non-physical, you've closed the gap completely, so there is no separation in your vibration. So the things that worried you, the things you were afraid of, the things that made you feel powerless, the things that you felt angry about, the things that you were frustrated about and overwhelmed about, those things that caused a separation within you while you were physical are gone, and you are pure positive energy. So that's the reason that sometimes a physical friend who's reaching for their dearly departed doesn't feel like they've found them, because their personality has changed in the sense that now only the best feeling part of them is active. You see. Now, sometimes a psychic can tap into something and they're sure, in other words, your mother, they will say, is telling me that she buried the key in the backyard and that she's worried that somebody else is going to do such and such. And we say, they're not tapping in to the essence of who your dead mother is. They're tapping into the thought forms that she left scattered about while she was living her connected and not so connected life experience. So your question is about where are my friends that have made their transition, and we say they are as real as they have ever been, and you actually have more access to them now than you ever did, provided you are on the vibrational wavelengths with where they are. Esther was chatting with her father a lot when he first made his transition. very satisfying to her. He told her, and her mother told her this recently also, that in the same way that you are translating vibrationally here, and that is why you see and hear and smell and taste and touch, that there it is not different either. It is mind that is translating into something that is meaningful. And so there, in the non-physical realm, it feels as if there are places and people and streets and furniture too, because you're translating it into something that is meaningful for you. And especially someone who has just made their transition, who is accustomed to seeing things in that way, that's still part of their desire, you see. So let's put it into very real terms for you. So as you are in your physical body still, and you're asking your question from this format, and you're wanting to know, can I now talk to someone who is no longer in their physical body? The answer is yes. And you say, and can they hear me? And we say, every time. And you say, well, then why am I not hearing them? And we say, because you're not yet vibrationally up to speed with where they are. That's why it's a very common thing, and this has happened to you. It's a very common thing that you will be having some moment of joy somewhere, and you will, in your alignment, have a thought or even hear a song or even smell a fragrance that is them thinking about you and focusing toward you. And you feel it for a moment, and then you almost immediately go to your loss. Those were the words you used when you started. I have lost them. And as you go to your feeling of loss, then you cause separation. A few years ago, before the first Alaskan cruise with all of you, Jerry and Esther took a cruise just to make sure it would be good for you. And it was they're so kind. And it was an Alaskan cruise, and it was right after Esther's father had made his transition, right after, within a few days, really. And as Esther and Jerry were at the dinner table, she saw many families that were celebrating 80th birthdays and many families that were celebrating 50th and 60th wedding anniversaries. And it made Esther feel sad for a little while, because she had wanted her family to come on the cruise and had never arranged it, and now it was too late. Her father was gone and her mother was not able, and so Esther was feeling some of that. And so she laid down on her cabin bed, and she was determined that she was going to focus back into her feeling of well-being. And Jerry was out on the balcony, looking out across the water. And as Esther relaxed into her vibration of well-being, she said, "Hey, Daddy, I forgot you can be on this cruise if you want to now. I'm having a very good time," she said. "I hope you will come and play too." And in that moment, she began hearing a song, a very clear song, her father's voice singing, a song he always sang in the car on the road to Mandalay, where the flying fishes play. And Jerry is out on the balcony, and all of a sudden he comes running back into the cabin, and he says, Esther, come and see what I've seen." And Esther said, "What it is?" And Jerry said, "I can't believe it. I didn't know they were here, but I have seen flying fish." So Jerry is looking out into the distance, and he sees something that looks like birds. They were bright diamonds, and then they disappeared. And then he'd see them again, and then they disappeared. So Jerry is on the balcony having an experience with flying fish. And Esther is lying on the bed hearing her father singing the song about flying fish. And Esther never again questioned if her father had come on the cruise with her. In other words, there is no separation between what is physical and what is non-physical, other than vibration. There is no separation between what you want and what you are lacking, other than vibration. In other words, everything is about vibration. So the best thing about someone making their transition before you think you're done with them, and we've noticed you're never done with each other. You keep wanting that. That's what that grief is all about. It's your feeling of regret that you couldn't have gotten it just into a better place. And we say, it's never done. You can't get it wrong, and you never get it done. And the reason that you can't get it wrong is because it is never done. Your relationships are eternal. And as you know that, now it's a different relationship though. It's different. You want to look at it through your non-physical eyes. As our friend says, as it's coming all around us today, as we can feel it from so many of you, as you are saying, I want to come into alignment and I want the pure essence of who I am to have these experiences. You must do that if you're going to have experiences with those who are non-physical. In other words, you can have all of the experiences in the world with your physical friends, and they can feel good to you and they can feel bad to you, and you can love each other and you can beat each other up. But if you're going to continue your relationship with your dearly departed, you've got to bring yourself up to vibrational speed with who they are. And you know why? Because like Jerry, when Esther was all unhappy about the stained rocks, your dead friends won't come there with you in your misery. Their inner being, like they're going to maintain the vibration of who they are. So if you're going to communicate with them every single time, you've got to go to their vibrational wavelength, which means you got to be loving you. You can't be mad at you. You got to be adoring you. You got to be loving them. You can't be regretting anything. You can't regret the fact that they're not still around and ever communicate with them because the vibrational frequencies are too far apart. Get on a rampage of appreciation. The other night, Jerry and Esther were having dinner in Portland with dear friends, longtime friends. And they were sitting in their backyard, which is in the middle of a magnificent rainforest environment. And salmon was cooking on the grill and wonderful things were happening. And they were sitting in this magnificent setting with these people that they love so much. And their friends were talking about their big old shaggy dog that had been there last time Jerry and Esther had been there eating with them. And since then, this dog has croaked and is buried under the big tree right over there. And as Jerry and Esther asked about the dog, because they did not see it around, they began expressing their appreciation for this beast. And Esther felt the energy of this big shaggy dog flowing completely through her body. She felt her tail wagging. She felt her happy, expanded breathing. And Esther said to them, you know, it's not uncommon for somebody to talk about someone they love who is dead and me to feel the energy of them join us at the dinner table. This is something that happens not always, not even often, but from time to time. But this is the first time ever that I've received the vibration of a beast. And I got to tell you, it's the sweetest energy I ever felt. Utterly unconditional love. Absence of regret, just a complete presence. And what it said to Esther is, that dog romps in that yard all the time. It has never left.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.